Today we're talking about theming for actionable results, and we'll dig into what theming is. I want to talk a little bit about why we're running this. So over the past couple months, we've seen a huge surge in people actually running exchanges, and not only running them, but getting a lot of participation in their exchanges. And that is phenomenal because it means that people need to be heard. Those conversations are happening, and it leaves you as a leader in the place of, oh, how do I work with these results now? All right, so that's what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about how you can do theming work, which we'll dig into and build some definitions to really have action in mind. And so if you want to join the conversation on social media, these are our two hashtags. So hashtag TEVE, that's talking about all of our virtual events, and then hashtag TE Masterclass, that is our LinkedIn, our Twitter, wherever you want to join as well. A bit of housekeeping details are that there is a chat function in the webinar. But if you have any questions, we're actually going to run an exchange at the end of our time together. So saving them for the end in that exchange will allow other people to see your questions, and that way they can really be addressed too. So here's what we're talking about, or let me introduce myself before I say what we're talking about. My name is Tila Beischer, and I am a customer success manager here at Thoughtexchange. So I work primarily in education, but I do support with quite a few of our corporate customers, as well as running these events, which are for both. And I work to help people not just plan, execute, and understand their results of exchanges, but also to help them to plan adoption in their organization. So how do you be really strategic about rolling Thoughtexchange out? How do you know what to talk about next as well? And I do want to point out too that we do have an amazing community available for you in your learning and your connection. So we have virtual events, we have master classes every single Monday, we have getting started workshops too. If you want a refresher on the basics, those are on Thursdays. And then we're having some wonderful events all throughout the week to empower your thought leadership skills. We also have an amazing help section, and I'll dig into that a little bit today so you know where to find resources. And you have your dedicated Thoughtexchange team. So that might be your customer success manager and your account manager too. So here's what we're talking about today. We are talking about theming, what it is, how do you decide what strategy to use, and then we're going to dig into all of those different strategies. So one of the strategies is AI theming or automatic theming. You could call it machine theming. We have emergent theming, strategic or targeted theming, and then we're going to specifically talk about theming for high volume exchanges. And we're going to dig into a Discover dashboard together so you actually see the things that I'm talking about. We're not just looking at a slideshow. All right, so what is theming? You can see some bars here from a sample exchange. This is the bar chart of some AI theming that we did on a sample exchange. And theming is when you group thoughts together to develop your understanding of the exchange that you just led. It really allows you to understand the big picture or to get really great actionable groups of thoughts. And so you don't just want to know, okay, these were the top 1,000 thoughts in my exchange, read through. You want to start to find where are the commonalities? What are those things that are showing up again and again and again? And how are people agreeing that those themes are really important or really high priority? And so you're going to use different theming strategies for different exchanges depending on your objectives. And today we're going to review how to choose the appropriate theming strategy. And thinking about that language, you've now heard me use that word a couple times, theming strategy. This is a plan for how you will sort thoughts to inform your understanding of the conversation and your next steps. So your themes are the actual bars that we're seeing themselves. They're composed of different thoughts, and the strategy is how you're choosing to create those bars or those groups of thoughts. And if you've been to a masterclass before, if you've talked with your CSM before or your account manager before, we always loop back to objectives. So before you start working with your results, before you start any planning for any element of your exchange, I want you to think really clearly about what are my objectives for running this exchange? Why did you run it? And what's the progress that you need to make with the results? And getting clear on that will allow you to choose the appropriate strategy. So for example, thinking about your objectives, you could ask yourself, why did you run the exchange? What action are you trying to inform? And then how do you need to theme the results to inform that action? So if your objective is to identify priorities to inform a plan, maybe your theme is going to be what those priorities are, or your theme set will become what those priorities are. So if you were to ask a question like, what is important for us to consider as we start planning a return to the office? The different themes that come up could be things that inform your priorities or your planning. So maybe what came up was quite a few thoughts about sanitation or quite a few thoughts about scheduling as well. So you can imagine that your strategy then would be to look at what's coming up in the conversation and to build those into themes. Another thing could be maybe you have launched a proposal and you're asking for feedback. Maybe what you're asking yourself when you're thinking about doing your theming is, how do I need to understand this feedback? Do I need to look at it and just see what came up and theme according to that? Or is it more useful for me if I were to theme on a strategy? So maybe my proposal had different pillars or different areas in it. And so maybe part of it was planning for the future, current analysis, etc. I could have my themes be those different pillars or be those different goals within the plan as well. So that's how to incorporate your objectives. Really think about how you can understand why you ran the exchange and what you need from the results to make action on them. And then thinking about your theming strategy itself, we have 3 really powerful ones that I'm going to recommend to you today. So we have AI theming, emergent theming, and targeted theming. And these are different options, different theming strategies that you can use that will have different ways of understanding and presenting the information. And so when you're choosing between the 3 of these, we'll go through them in really kind of deeper picture. But if you're thinking about AI theming and why you would choose that strategy, what's the value? It helps you understand the big picture really quickly. Emergent theming is driven by the thoughts shared. So it's essentially allowing your participants to drive your theming strategy. And targeted theming is action-oriented, so you know that you need to do X, Y, Z with the results. You're doing it more targeted theme set. When you're thinking about AI theming, it's something that happens for every single exchange, and it helps you to see that big picture. So we are constantly running an algorithm on every exchange that you run that themes it for you. And so it finds those buckets of conversations. But one thing that you think about when you're considering if you want to use this theme set or this strategy is that AI theming doesn't have your local knowledge. It doesn't have critical thinking. So it can find keywords, it can find thoughts that the words are related, but it's not looking at those underlying values or those underlying sentiments. Another thing to keep in mind with AI theming is that because it's running the entire time that your exchange is live, the themes are going to shift throughout the exchange. So if you're going to do any work with it, I recommend waiting until the end of the exchange after it's closed, and then you can actually duplicate it and edit it if you want to. Emergent theming is a slightly different strategy. It's thinking about AI theming. So you're thinking about what came up in the conversation, but you're actually jumping into the exchange without any preconceived notions, looking at the content of the thoughts, and then creating your own themes based on what you see coming up. It's a little bit more hands-on than AI theming, but it's a little less work than targeted theming. Successful emergent theming really looks at the thought critically and asks, what are participants really saying? And then you can be able to identify both the content and the underlying interest in the thoughts. And then targeted theming is kind of this is strategic. We know exactly what we're going to need to do. It's when you select a select number of representative thoughts to highlight key concepts or key action. So you can see on this slide, I have an example of some targeted theming. This is a timely theme set. So we're thinking about, we're going to action on these items. This one is an immediate action. This one is medium term, long term, not going to action, and then needs investigation still. So you could think about it, I'm adding thoughts to those different ones based on how I'm going to action them. And when you're thinking about targeted or more strategic theming, we do have some sample theme sets that are available to you. And then you can actually just duplicate those and fill them in for yourself. And let's talk too, before we move into that dashboard, about theming large volume exchanges. And so we've seen a trend recently of really high volume exchanges, which is when an exchange has a large amount of participants, a lot of thoughts, a lot of ratings too. And this is going to look different for every organization depending on how many people are in your organization or your stakeholder network. But this could mean hundreds if you're a smaller business, and it could mean tens of thousands if you're a school district or a larger organization. And when your exchange is this large, you really want to be conscious of how you're working with the results in a way that honors your participants is really efficient and speaks to the highest agreement on those priorities that people are identifying. And so what I've done here is I've actioned out when you're thinking specifically about these large volume exchanges, think about breaking your work into these 3 steps. So you're going to start with planning, thinking about, all right, this is a lot of information here. Who else on my team do I need to get trained up and ready to support me with completing some of the theming? You want to think about your objectives. Why did we run this exchange in the first time? And then you're going to want to review the AI themes to see what came up first in the conversation. When you're actually doing the theming work itself, this might look like an emergent theme set. So theming based on what came up in the top 200, top 300 thoughts. And you want it to be representative of the most important thoughts. And what I mean by that are the thoughts that rose to the top. So maybe you're rating everything that was rated 4.1 and above, or 4.0 and above. Another thing to consider is that in a high volume exchange, you have a ton of data. Maybe you want multiple theme sets. That's an option. Maybe you're going to use the AI themes to share out back with your participants, and you're going to do a strategic or an impact theme set to work with your team. And then thinking about these large volume exchanges, we say this all the time, but sharing the results back with participants is incredibly important. Again, thinking about honoring them and circling back with them, including them moving forward. So in your summary report, you can opt to include all of the thoughts. So you know how you can edit how many thoughts appear in the summary report, make sure that you're including all. And then when you're putting in those high impact themes or just those high agreement themes, it's really powerful to just put in some custom text. You can edit that theme area on the summary report to say we themed the top 200 thoughts, we themed the top 300 thoughts. These are representative of the high agreement in the conversation. All right, well, let's move now into an actual Discover dashboard and look at what some of this looks like together. All right, I see we had a question pop up. Helen asked, what does the AI in AI theming stand for? I think it means automatic integrated algorithm. That's a really good question. All right, so let's look at, I'll find that out afterwards and follow up with you, Helen. Good question. Artificial intelligence. Thank you, Lynette. Clearly it is Monday morning still, and I am needing more coffee. All right, so here's our sample exchange. So we have 1,000 participants. We have 2,000 thoughts and about 5,300 stars. And so what we're going to do is we are going to start looking at the AI theming within the exchange. So this is what the algorithm found were the top themes in the exchange. And what's kind of nice about this is it gives us a starting point. It allows us to look at the conversation and see that everything is closed. We see them sorted right now by star score in the bars. So the one that was rated the highest is showing up here. This is an education exchange, so we're looking at class sizes was the largest volume. Then we have support, we have feeling safe. This gives me an understanding of what came up as in the exchange as it was live. The other thing that I want to highlight for you here is see up in the top right, we're looking at this star view here. If I click on this thought bubble, it's actually going to show the themes based on the total thoughts within each theme. And if you're thinking about that and how it changes your understanding, or you want to speak to your leadership team about these two views, the thoughts view, so where we're looking at it right now, this is our loud view. So these are the loud voices. Think about at the town hall meeting that we always give an example. The same people are sharing the same thoughts, and you can see that volume view here. Whereas looking at the star view is the agreement view. And this is what your participants have agreed is important to talk about. And I really want to highlight, see this top theme here? Participants all voted that class size was the most important thing to them. But if we look at it in the thought view here, it's actually the third largest conversation. And so thinking again of that transition from loud to crowd, this is where you can highlight that for your leadership team or anyone who you're presenting results to. So that's AI themes. If I wanted to hop in and edit this, I'll show you how to really quickly. So maybe what I want to do is I want to change some of the words. Maybe I don't want it to say feel safe. Maybe I want it to say stay safety. And staff, I want to say staff and teachers. Good and like, maybe eventually I want to merge those together and do some manual theming. So you can edit the AI themes just by clicking on the theme button. Click on new, give it a name. So maybe I'm going to name it Webinar June 8th Themes. I'm going to name it Copy from AI. And I'm going to click on Copy Existing and copy AI generated themes. And remember during that slide when I was talking about how the AI themes update while the exchange is live, you're really going to want to make sure that you wait until the end to do this copy, because otherwise you're going to copy something that's then going to change. So your earlier copy won't actually be representative of what came up in the conversation. So I click on Create here. Oh, I got a message in the chat that we're frozen. Is everyone able to see the screen now again? Can you maybe use the raise hand if you can? Perfect. All right, we've seen a lot of those pop up. Wonderful, thank you. All right, perfect. So now what we did was we copied it. And so I have a duplicate of the theme set. And if I want to make any edits to the actual themes themselves, I do so under Manage. And under Manage, you can see I have all of my themes. If I wanted to translate them into Spanish, I could as well. And here, maybe I want to have, the one that we were talking about was Feel Safe. Maybe I want to rename that to Safety. So all I do is click on it, and then I can just type Safety in. And Equity District, maybe I want to rename that to Equity and Inclusion. Maybe and Diversity as well. So because I know more about what happened in the exchange, I can speak more to the themes than the algorithm could. So that's example one, that's AI theming. And then I could go back to my bar chart and view it based on the themes. The other thing that you can do as well is emergent theming. And the way to do that emergent theming, remember that's theming based on what came up in the conversation, is to read through the top thoughts. So maybe you're going to read through the first 2 pages. Remember that there's 50 thoughts on each page. And you're thinking about, what am I seeing come up? So I'm seeing class size. I'm seeing electives. Class size again as well. I'm seeing social and emotional learning here as well. So what I would do is I would actually hop into the themer. So click on theme again. Click on new to create a new theme set. And maybe I'm going to name it Emergent Themes June 8th. And I'm not going to copy anything. I'm not going to use any of the templates. I'm going to click on create here. And then I'm going to set up my own theme set here under manage. So this is where I would put those categories in, or those themes in. So theme, remember we saw class size. We saw social and emotional learning. And then maybe we can imagine that we also saw, because we didn't read enough of that, we saw safety. Perfect. Click on OK. And I can hop back in and edit these at any point. What I then do is I click on the thought here, and then I click on the theme, and it categorizes the thought into the theme. So I would just go through and do that. And what's really wonderful about this process, oops, there we go, click on class size, is you have a couple tools built in to make this quicker and easier for you. So one is a search function up at the top. So maybe I want to theme all of the thoughts related to class size. I can search class size, click enter, and then it's going to highlight every thought that has the word class size in it. I can click on this checkbox, and that will select all of the thoughts, and then click on the appropriate theme over here, and it's going to auto theme all of the thoughts that I just selected. So you can see, I'll have to go page by page because there's so many here. But see how fast that was to actually just grab all of the thoughts related to class size. You could do the same thing with safety. So let's search safe. Select all of them, and then just click on safety here as well. And we just saw a really good example of something to point out as well. And we have a question that just came up. Can thoughts only go into one theme? Yes. And so this top here, elementary class sizes are too high. This is a safety hazard. I would need to use my local knowledge, my best judgment, to decide which theme to categorize that. And so if I'm thinking about the sentiment or the underlying interest of the theme, it's not talking about safety, it's actually talking about class size and using safety as the example. So I would actually choose to click on this thought and click on class size. And that is that, again, thoughts can only go into one theme. So that's emergent theming. What you might find too is that as you're doing this work, you're going through, you're reading all the thoughts, that you realize that you need to add in another theme as well. You can always click on manage and then add another theme in there as well. Perfect, and we just saw another question come up in the Q&A. All right. Perfect. All right, so that's emergent theming. When you're thinking about this, if you do ever get stuck as well, I want to show you that we do have this little help button up here that does have a drop down menu here. So you could even search emergent theming, and it's going to give you some examples here about doing some theming work too. And when we're looking at this here, you can see that we have theme sets to get you thinking and targeted theming for actionable results. That's what I want to show you next. I want to show you targeted theming. And so remember that these are theme sets that inform action. And so if I clicked on new, I'm going to say impact theme, June 8th, and I'm going to use one of these templates that are here as well. So you can see that we have different templates. You can dig into all of these to see what the themes are. What I'm actually going to do is use this impact theme set here. Click on create, and it is going to create the theme set for me with all of the different action items. So I'm thinking about these thoughts. How high impact are they, and how long do I need to action upon them? And then I would theme according to that. So maybe this is high impact, but it's going to take me a longer time to do that. High impact, going to take me a longer time to do that. PE and music class in elementary school. This is low impact, low hanging fruit because we already offer those. So that's just some education that I need to offer. This one here, high impact, longer term as well. So you can see that you're going through, you're reading each thought, and then you're tagging them into the appropriate impact. And what I would recommend doing is thinking about maybe only doing the top 200, the top 300. Go through and you can see each thought, you can see ranked 49, 50. I could go on to this next page here, read 50 to 100. That way you're not needing to theme every single thought in the exchange. You're just doing those high agreement ones. The other thing that I really want to point out, thinking about high volume exchanges, is that theming isn't going to be the only thing that gives you insight. It's an amazing place to start to get understanding of what were those high agreement topics. The AI themers really give you that high level, big picture overview of what were the big themes that came up in the conversation. But tools like differences, tools like the thoughts, and even the heat maps can be a really powerful way to look up elsewhere into the conversation for further information. But theming is a really valuable way to understand those high agreement thoughts. Perfect. So that's everything that we were going to review today. What we're going to do now is move into a Q&A. We have about 6 minutes left, so we'll rush through this. And if we don't have time to get to every single thought in the exchange, I will create a report afterwards. And I'm just setting that up here. Perfect. All right, so you should be able to see our presenter mode. And presenter mode is available to you if you are a leader. It's just a function that you can find from your manage page, and you can use it to embed in your virtual events like what we're doing today. So if you want to use the QR code to join the exchange and ask a question, what are your thoughts and questions about theming? Please do, and then we'll talk through the top thoughts that come up. And if you need a link to the exchange as well, just let me know in the chat and I can do that too. But you should be able to get in just using the QR code or by going to tejoin.com and typing in this 9-digit code that you see on the screen. What I'm going to do now is mute myself, which is hard to do on a virtual event because I can't see all of your faces, but it will allow you some space and some quiet to ask your questions. All right, and so we are at time. I'm still seeing some ratings come through, and I'm sorry we didn't have more time to spend on this, but I do want to get to your questions. Remember that if we don't have time to address the question today, that I will follow up with a leader report and answer all of your questions using that leader comments function, which if you haven't had the opportunity to use it yet in one of your exchanges, it's the opportunity to add a leader reply to a thought that comes up in an exchange. So let's talk here. The top one here, we'll click on the Discover view now. Now we are going to see a shift. Here we go. So our question, what are your thoughts and questions about themings? Can you create subsets of themes? For example, under safety, can you create sub-themes to better categorize the results? Yes, you can. So we call these summary themes. So what you can do is you can set up a summary theme and then create themes underneath it. And it basically allows you to be really targeted with what your themes are. So I love that you have safety there. So maybe under safety, we actually have facilities, maybe we have online safety, and maybe we have need for more safety support staff on school. And what I could do as well is when I'm looking at this, I'll click on the Manage button here in our example. Under this theme button here, I can click on Summary Theme and add one in here. So I could type in safety, and this is the wrong theme set, so it's going to look a little weird, but it's going to give you the example. So then I have my safety theme, and I can just move my sub-themes below the correct summary theme. And that will give you the visual understanding of what happened in the exchange and allow you to really create essentially buckets within your bucket. So you have your umbrella, summary theme, and then you have your themes within that as well. Cool. All right, so how do you create a report from the targeted themes? Yes, good question. So you can create any report, or you can include any of your theme sets in your summary reports. When you're thinking about your reports, and we do have a really good, we have a good resource on how to create these that I can send in a video follow-up. But if you click on reports here, well, we have a ton of example ones in this demo. I'll just click on create to show you a new one. Under the bars area here, when I click on the settings button, I can choose what theme set that I want to include. So maybe I'm sharing this summary report with my leadership team, so I want to put my impact theme set in. I would choose that. But maybe this is a different summary report that I'm wanting to share out with everyone, and I want to share those high agreement themes. Then I would choose my emergent themes as well. So you're able to create multiple summary reports with different theme sets in them, which I think is really powerful when you think about who do you need to loop in to make action on the results. All right, so our next question here, can more than one person work on theming in one exchange? Yes, and this is an activity that we do internally. Sometimes we will, as a team, sit down and theme the exchange together as a way to have a conversation about the results. As an exchange leader, it's really your role to be accountable for intimately understanding what came up in the conversation. So doing the work of theming together allows you to decide what was important and how are we going to move into it together or move forward with it together. And what you can do is actually under the manage area, if you set anyone up under manage with access, click on add. I could add someone in here. Maybe I'll just add myself in as an example. You just type their email address in here. You click on manage, and then they can log into the dashboard and support you with theming too. It's an awesome way to get everyone on your team, especially right now, most people are working remotely still. Everyone can be working on it from home together. Maybe you set up a Zoom call and you screen share and you all work on it together. All right, so let's do one more and then we'll log off. I know we're a little bit over time here. So is there a way to teach the AI or to give it little tips? There is not. That is an amazing product feature suggestion for the future. Right now, my suggestion for you thinking about using AI themes is it's your way to understand a big picture of the conversation. It's a jumping off point for theming. It's not always going to be the theming work that you do. So it helps you to get an understanding. Maybe if theming isn't a significant part of your Discover strategy, then it's where you start. But if theming is important, again, it's a starting point to get an understanding, and then you do the emergent or the strategic or targeted theming. Perfect. How do I approach using summary themes? We dug into that really quickly as well, but we will follow up with some resources via email. So Thank you so much for attending. So sorry this Q&A period was a little bit rushed, but I'm going to spend some time putting together a few resources for all of the questions that came up here. We have some amazing ones as well. And there's a really good meaty one down here at the bottom about honoring all of the thoughts as well. And so how can you manage sharing back out? And so I'm going to put in some answers for you there, send them to you via email. I also want to mention that if you do want more of a overview, a general start for Thoughtexchange, we do have a Getting Started workshop on Thursday at noon PST. It's all about the basics of question design, of introduction design. So if you feel like you want a refresher on that, you can register for that too. Just reach out to your CSM or your account manager and they will send you the link to that. So thank you for your time again today. Feel free to hop off now. I'm going to end the webinar and I will follow up with all of your questions with answers to them. Thanks, everyone.